Hey everyone, Shower Door Pros, welcome to our Wednesday evening forum. So glad you could join us. Hey, if you'd like to join us here in the chat room, you can do so by just clicking on the link in the Facebook post, and it'll take you right into the Zoom chat room and let you in. You can weigh in. And if you'd rather just kind of hang back and kind of watch, you can always post a question in the chat room there on Facebook, and I'll keep an eye on that. And if it's interesting, who knows? Maybe I'll bring it up in here. So yeah, hey, it's good to see you guys. You never know who's going to show up, and you never know what might happen. So it's always fun, and I look forward to it every week. So, wow, yeah, we got a whole bunch of people joining, so I'm just letting them in.
That's funny. I was just chatting with Dana and asked him to join. So we got Dana.
Yep, there he
is. And
is.
look, there's Andrew as we
Look
speak.
at that. Speak of the devil, and he will appear. Well, all right. Hey, yeah. So, I didn't really have any, particular topic for tonight. I mean, I was thinking if for somehow we didn't come up, with something to talk about, I can always, throw something in the mix. But we were, the talk of the town is really, what the NGA is doing with the shower door program. So it's awesome to see that Andrew's here. He is the guy who's kind of at the tip of the spear on that. And and actually, Tim Connell was just talking a little bit about that. Was asking us if we had looked at it. So I saw that something was posted in LinkedIn, so I'm aware of it. Haven't had a chance to really look at it yet.
Gotta buy it.
But I'm excited to hear more about it. And since Andrew's here, maybe you'd like to just chat about it for a couple of minutes. Tell us about where we're at so far and what we might expect in the future.
Sure. Yeah, I didn't really show up with an agenda, but I appreciated the invite. I'd be happy to chat a little bit about it. So I don't want to dig too deep in the wrong direction. Is everyone on this call relatively familiar with the National Glass Association in terms of who we are and what we do or what we try to do anyways?
Yep, it's a couple of years.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So our membership is comprised of the entire industry supply chain, all the way from the primary floaters to the fabricators, to the installers, to all the suppliers and manufacturers connecting anything glass to buildings. And so that's, we aren't the experts, but we're kind of the conduit. And so our members, whether it's a glazer, a manufacturer, an engineer, they come together and produce these resources for the industry. And so sometimes that comes down to glass fabrication technical standards. Sometimes that comes down to structural standards and performance. And otherwise, sometimes it's simple installation. And these aren't codes, but these are guidelines that we produce with the industry. And it's kind of a consensus that we pull multiple people to come together, like-minded, oftentimes competitors that take that competitor hat off just for the greater good. And it's always about best practice and safety. So our latest product that came out is our Frameless Shower Design Guide. And this is kind of a two-pronger here. This is the first half that's been in the works for probably about a year and a half now. We do a lot, but we're not fast. And so we'd rather get it right than get it done. And so that's been in the works for a bit. And so that's going to be the first part. And that's really about safety. Design what you can or can't do, should or shouldn't do in terms of the design of a frameless shower enclosure. Saying, your glass, if this tall, your glass needs to be this thick. If it's a fixed panel, this hardware is needed here. Here's what you should or should not do. And just because, as you guys know better than me or most, glass is heavy and sharp. And when you mix water, that doesn't get any safer. So this design guide is going to have a lot of those tolerances and those recommendations in it. I think for members, digital download, I think it's $25. But maybe, let me see what I can do. Maybe I can get this group a promo code or something for a discount, just because I'm going to try to talk a lot of you folks into helping us with the next prong of the project, which is the installation guide. And so the design guide just came out this week, and starting, I think in January, we're going to kick off, we're formalizing our task group there. And then the sister to the design guide will be the installation guide. And so that there will be kind of a comprehensive look, probably more so than anyone's really done at an official capacity for frameless shower doors.
Right.
Nice hat, Jimbo.
Oh, for Pete's sake.
Well, this is embarrassing.
We're just letting the back door in. We're just letting anyone in now. Just anybody can just come in this Zoom.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, unless you really start acting out. No,
We took an oath. We all took an oath and a pact.
Hey, I'm not here to peddle software. I know that.
Oh,
ouch.
my shower is actually still leaking 5 years later. I can't seem to fix it. So I'm just going to keep coming until somebody can solve it.
I do have a button here that says mute all, so just be aware.
He has the button. Good to see you, Andrew.
I made it for 7 minutes. I'm getting kicked off already.
Good to see you, Andrew. I'm glad to see your face.
Likewise, buddy. So for this group, any questions or anything I can do? I mean, I'd love for all of you guys to see it and provide some feedback, and then get more folks involved on the front end of this installation guide. Because I think, again, we're not the experts. We just bring the folks together that have been doing it and know what they're talking about and know what they're doing. So let me see if I can get you all a promo code to knock down that price a little bit, because I think the feedback would be very valuable for my folks.
That's awesome. Thanks, Andrew.
Andrew, thanks for joining us. This guide, I've been talking to many installers throughout the country, and it's been long overdue, because we see photos on Chris's page here of jobs that guys are doing across the country, and we all do things a little bit differently. None of them are wrong. I don't see anything wrong with it. It's just different. And that doesn't mean it's not going to meet the safety guidelines, but some of the guidelines are archaic, so that we have to, as a group, have a good consensus of what is safe and what's not safe. But I don't want to be over the top saying it's not safe without statistics saying that it's not safe. We get chastised very often for doing 90-degree return panels without putting a sleeve over on the corner. And yet, over 80,000 doors we've installed, I've never had one fail, ever. Yet, I see doors pulling out of wall mount hinges on a daily basis, sliding out of the gaskets, and you actually see the gaskets coming out of the hinge often. And to me, that causes a bigger danger, because that's a movable, operable door that's going to hit many things. So I may get chastised for it, but it's not a safety issue. And I think many of the guys that we've talked to here, Chris, you included, probably do not, as a rule, put a sleeve over on a 90-degree return.
Well, you know, one of the great things about having you in the group, one of the many great things about having you in the group, Bill, is that you do so many pivot hinge doors. I mean, almost exclusively. So you've got tons and tons of experience with that, and it's different, you know, for a pivot type door than it is, you know, like a glass to glass hinge or even glass to wall hinge, because so much of the weight, you know, is being carried by that bottom pivot. So, you know, that to have like a cookie cutter rule for glass to glass, and not take into account that you've got a top and bottom mount pivot, in my opinion, you know, is a mistake.
Yeah,
But this can often be more forgiving too, except for new installers. Sometimes it's kind of a nice way to start with some people for sets. I mean, to each their own, right? But I mean, I do agree with that. But I hate how every catalog and every shower guide immediately goes to wall to glass. And it's almost a stigma around pivot hinges that I just don't think is fair.
Yeah, I agree. And there's many other benefits, not only the weight distribution, because obviously you're letting gravity work for you when you're mounting the bottom to the threshold. I mean, just imagine if you were standing, let's just say your two hands were a hinge. Oh my God, there's the spokesperson. Just say your two hands were the hinge and you're standing there holding a piece of 3/8 glass. And I say to you, how long can you stand here and hold that glass in your hand, but keep it a 1/2 inch off the threshold? Don't let it come down. Conversely, go ahead and sit the bottom of the glass right on the threshold and just use one hand and stabilize the top. How much longer will that last than the other? I mean, it's just physics. It's obviously a better way of doing it, or a better way of transporting the weight. I don't want to say it's a better way of doing it. It's just a different way of doing it, but you're transferring the weight and asking for less trouble, I think is a better way of saying it.
Be careful, Bill. Be careful.
Yeah. No, I mean,
Okay.
Chris, for my first 15 years, we only used wall mount hinges. So I'm very familiar with it. Believe me, I am. But I kept saying to myself, there's got to be a better way. It's just, there's got to be.
Are
And
you running into any snags though? Are you leakage or anything? You know, if I started to switch over to mostly pivot type hinges, you know, what might I need to know about?
I tell you what, there's going to be so many advantages. I don't know. You know,
Trying to handle out of plumb conditions can be a little bit of an issue.
it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. Billy Brett and I went through this a few weeks ago. I know his fabricator wouldn't make the glass for him with an out of plumb situation. And I talked it over with my guys. We've been doing over 1 inch out of plumb on a vertical rise and still use the same pivot door and not a problem. You try
Bill,
and do that. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Finish your thought.
Try and do the same thing with a wall mount hinge when you're way out of plumb like that and your hinge pins are not concentric. They're fighting against each other. So, you know, to answer what other challenges, I can't really think of one that's a challenge of going to a pivot.
Well,
Well, one thing
had
that you
problems, you know, when we do them. So, and I'll let someone else talk. But real quick, are you just putting silicone in the bottom holes, or are you sealing those holes another way, or what do you do?
The bottom holes where you're drilling into the threshold, we are drilling the holes, putting our plastic anchor in, shooting silicone in it, and then putting the screw in.
Okay, I just wanted to see,
Yeah.
you know,
Then
you
we'll-
do anything different or not.
and I'll run a very, very thin bead of caulk underneath the actual hinge itself.
Oh.
Probably we don't even have to do that. We just do it as an added safety precaution, and I don't mean leakage precaution. And that's in case they use tile for their threshold instead of a one-piece sill. If they had individual tiles, we'll just put caulking underneath it. You're not going to see it, just giving it another barrier. But I guess the biggest trepidation of a pivot is that you have to drill the bottom. But I'm only drilling 4 total holes, 2 at the bottom and 2 at the top. When you're doing wall mount, you got a minimum of 8 holes. So I've just cut the amount of drilling in half and half the number of potential tile cracking.
Yeah.
So, you know, I find that installation is quicker. To me, it's easier to line up with one guy. Chris, you've done both. Do you find it just as easy to install the pivots as a wall mount?
Yeah, I mean, easier. And I think you're right. I think if there's one downside, it would be that there's no way to avoid drilling down.
Yeah.
Into the curb, you know, and it's like, I guess there are some people who are just like dead set against that. So, I mean, if they're like just dogmatic about not drilling down into the threshold, then you really couldn't use one there.
Not true.
Other than that, no, what would you do?
No. You know the pork chop that you use to hold the top
yeah.
hinge? You can use that on the bottom and just modify your notch in your glass, and then you can go into the sidewall.
That's right. I hadn't even thought of that, but that's right.
So
Yeah.
say that again.
So when you go to mount the top hinge, there's an accessory that is an L shape. We call it a
Yes.
pork chop.
Oh, okay.
All
Yep.
right. So you put it on the top and you drill horizontally into the wall. Well,
Right.
you can use that same part underneath your bottom hinge. In other words, set your bottom hinge
Okay.
on that pork chop and you can drill into the sidewall. Now, what happens is because you're putting that part under your hinge, you're raising it up. So that means your glass is coming up. So you have to modify the notch in that glass so that the other part of the glass that has the sweep on it gets lower to the threshold.
Yeah, you cut the leg off on the notch.
No.
No.
Well, yes, I see what you're saying. Yes. You make it shorter. You don't cut it off. You just make it shorter.
That would be the fix for that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a modified notch.
Yeah. So I saw Mike was trying to ask his question. What was your question, Mike?
Well, I know Bill answered this for me specifically, and I thought maybe he could comment on it. Was I see a lot of fiberglass pans and then tiled walls, and my concern was from a structural integrity standpoint, how much can that fiberglass pan take? Now you sent me pictures. Maybe you can comment on that for the group.
Yeah, so when I was in Massachusetts, there was a lot of manufacturers of the one-piece fiberglass units, the Aquaglass, Lasco, Kohler, Jacuzzi, Pearl, Sterling. And we put heavy glass swing pivot doors on those, but I didn't go any heavier than 3/8 glass. I didn't do 1/2-inch glass. Never have I had one crack, splinter, run. That weight, you're dispersing the weight over the 4 3/4-inch plate on the bottom. Never had a problem, ever.
I haven't had any problems either with it.
No. And now you do have to watch the pitches, some of those pre-made ones. I've had some bad ones from Kohler that were actually pitched outward.
Yeah.
So before you sell the customer something, check that pitch. They may want to install a threshold curb over it, just glue it on and make a stone threshold to sit on top of that fiberglass one. Or we'll use a metal threshold strip across there. No different than you would on a frame door, and then just sit the pivot hinge on that metal threshold. So there's a couple of ways around it.
Always that underneath of that threshold is relatively hollow. So when you drill down in it, I'm not sure the thickness of that pan, you've got this big gap that, I was concerned about leakage. If your sealant fails, then now you got an issue.
If your
sealant, I think it's why I asked you specifically, how you're doing that. So
you're right. If your sealant fails, you have an issue, but that's no different than a frame door that you've done, unless you don't drill down on your frame door. If you're doing a door and panel using L channel on the bottom of the fixed panel, most guys drill down on that. Now, some guys use double-sided tape, but other guys drill down. And yeah, if your sealant fails, you're going to have a leak. I can't see much water, even if I didn't use sealant there, and we do use it. If I put an anchor in there and a screw, and when that screw tightens, I don't think you can get more than 3 drops of water through it.
Yeah, water would have to just stand there for a long time.
Yeah, I don't even know how much would go through it.
Yeah.
No, I think there's another issue, though. I think there's an issue that it may or may not crop up, but especially if they put a cap on top, like a cultured marble cap or whatever. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
And if it somehow, like, they didn't get the underneath that cap caulked and water gets slipped under, okay, your anchor no longer does anything because now the water's underneath everything. But if you drill deep enough, you're obviously going to be down into your liner. And if water's always underneath that plate, then you can have a problem. And I would say the same is true with some tile. If water can get through grout lines or something like that, you could have a certain amount. So, I mean, the amount of leakage would be so minimal, you probably get, so many years, like 15-year life before there's actually damage. But it's kind of it could present some issues.
I kind of look at it this way with the situation. Just because you move to using pivot, I just call them, headerless pivots. Moving to that and using them more often does not mean you can't still use wall hinges.
Right.
So it's, I talked to Bill about this too, is yes, it's a great design, but I by rule do not drill down into pans. I just don't want to. So I still have hinges. I have adhesives I have things I can use that allow me not to do so. So when I can use the pivot, I use it because that just gives me a better percentage overall of not having an issue down the road. But because you use one doesn't mean you can't use the other, is the way I look at it. If you have to evaluate the situation and see what you think's best for that situation and then go from there. If you don't feel comfortable drilling pans, don't drill pans. You can still do plenty of work doing it an alternate way, but where I've seen the advantage is, super heavy doors, stuff like that, where you can rest it down. It makes proper sense, but don't do something you're not comfortable with. Something another guy does that he's comfortable with doesn't mean you have to, no matter what. Full respect to Bill, and he knows this. I've said it to him. He does a drastically high number than I do, but I'm not going to drill pans. I don't feel comfortable with it, so I'm not going to do it. So, and that's the understanding is to each their own in their own business. If there's no wrong way, it's just making the right decision on what's best for you and what you're doing.
So,
Billy, that's so perfectly said. And that's the point I wanted to make to Andrew and the National Glass Association is you're going to get a varying opinions. So I didn't want the NGA to come down and say, this is the way you must do it, because unless you have documentation and data supporting that, if you do this, injuries have occurred and this has occurred, then I would make that recommendation. But until we have that data, I wouldn't say, don't do this.
so I have a quick question. You might have covered this already, but with outages, if say the door is out an inch on the wall on the bottom, that's fine because you can move that pivot point over into the door. But if it's out an inch on the top of the wall, how do you handle that with that L shape? You said you call it a chicken bone or something?
Pork chop.
Pork chop.
Pork chop. How do you handle that with the pork chop? It would be an inch too far over, right?
No. Well, there's two ways of doing it. Don't forget that top hinge can go to the pork chop or it can be inserted in a header, right? So you could cut the door out a square, run a header and attach it into the header. So that's one way.
We get tons of pushback with headers, but yes.
Okay, so that's one way. But the second way is we go up to 1 inch out of square. In other words, that pivot point is not perpendicular to the bottom one. It can be slightly off and it still works and operates fine.
They're in line.
Yeah, it still works fine. So I've talked to both of my installation technicians and supervisors. They've drawn the 1 inch as their maximum out of square to use it.
Would you ever consider, and this is hacky, I don't love this idea, but would you ever consider rocking the door, not cutting the wall out, and then cutting the bottom out? Or I guess cutting the inside of the door out?
That's kind of what he's talking about. He's talking about rather than cutting the strike and the bottom square, he's talking about cutting the hinge side
Out of square, yeah.
Right.
Having the pivot, equal distance from the edge of the door at the top and bottom, which is something that we've kind of been directed that you couldn't do for a long time. But Bill's saying, they do it all the time. They haven't had any problems with it. The thing I think about is like when the door swings, will it run into the ground? I have to kind of think that through, but it seems like, is that an issue, Bill?
No,
If it's a zero entry, yeah.
we haven't had that at all. Don't forget, it's your vertical plumb. It's your vertical that's out of square. It's not your plumb. So it's not your horizontal.
Yeah.
Right.
That stays horizontal the whole
The
way.
bottom is still level, right?
Yeah.
Let me ask a question. Maybe my brain is too, I'm simplifying this too much, Christina, so I used these pivots the other day and I sent, say the top of the shower was leaning out so that the top of the door would be getting larger than the bottom of the door. My manufacturer had an issue with doing a headerless pivot, which is what I refer to it as, when you're having that issue with the two pivots not lining up with each other, or one of them needing to travel away from the wall because the door is getting smaller at the top. So what I did is I took my outer square and I just put it on the bottom pivot. which is not attached to the wall. It can move wherever you want to, and you can determine a door getting bigger at the top or smaller at the top by your bottom pivot, just like you can at the top. I've always drawn my out of squares at the top of my showers just naturally, but then I took my measurement and reversed it. I took my top measurement, did my out of squares on my bottom, and the bottom pivot can move wherever you want it to. The leg can grow, the leg can shrink. As long as you still have that rear leg on the back of the pivot, you're good to go. And that will still line up your top and bottom. Does that make sense?
It does, but to an extent, right? So if the top pivot if the wall is out on the top, like a full inch, you can't move that bottom pivot over a full inch. Won't it be off the
outer
glass?
space, right?
My question is, maybe I'm simplifying it too much, but why can't you? And if I'm going more than about a half out of plumb, I'm going to put a header on anything I do. That's just kind of common practice. But
a half would be fine, I think. It's just that leg is so narrow as it is, at least with ours, that like there's not an inch of play for that bottom to move over.
Oh, no, I think you're totally correct. An inch would be too drastic in my opinion, but you have 3/4 of an inch of leg to play with, full length. You're not going to take a full 3/4, obviously, but if you're dealing with a half, you can get a half there, and you're still lining up top and bottom, and that's the key, is making sure your pivot point is as close to in line vertically as possible. If it's off a little bit, because let's be honest, it's always off a fraction, a tiny fraction, you're still going to be okay. But anything that passes more than a half inch for me on a door, I'm going to go to a header and take that strain off the door no matter what. But that's what I did for my manufacturer when it seemed to confuse them. So I just reversed it. Let's deal with just the bottom of it. And it was like, oh, this makes more sense for us. And it seemed like this can't be the easy way to do it. This is too simple, but it seemed to take care of it.
Gotcha.
So Billy, are you doing your own drawings and they won't do them?
No, we don't. I don't do any drawings. I do everything.
You do Sarah Lawrence.
Yeah, I'm drawing everything in the computer.
Like
showers online.
Yeah.
So you do showers online, so that's why they won't do it.
Yes, but I can also I deal with more than one manufacturer. I do showers online with some, and then I hand draw some other ones. So I do whatever needs to be done per shower. But for this one, I did hand draw it with my cutouts, so it makes sense to the person that's never installed a shower in their life, that's running it through a system at the manufacturer.
Cool.
What do the installers ever like? I guess, Bill, do your installers ever complain about different types of hinges?
No, because we're not going to give them something that we haven't already trained them with in the shop. So whatever they're going out to install, they've already handled. We're fortunate enough to have a space in our shop for training, and they go through a pretty extensive training before they're in the field. And then when they go in the field, they're always with a lead installer. Guy's been there 2-3 years already. So they're with somebody. They always go in teams. They're not going by themselves. So they've never complained about that, ever.
Okay, cool. Yeah, we like to see what our different installers like to use from different manufacturers and what they like, what they don't like, and just get a sense of that, especially our guys who've been doing it for a long time. So yeah, I'll have to, poll the group about these pivot hinges.
But Bill, you're saying it's a lot easier to do the pivot hinges. And obviously, you're drilling less holes. And we've been using them specifically if somebody has glass tiles, or difficult situations where it makes sense.
Yeah. So. I use them as a standard. I used to use wall mount hinges, don't get me wrong, and there's still a good place for them. I guess the point I was bringing it all up wasn't so much to push the pivot hinges. It was only to make the point to Andrew and the NGA that as this guide comes out, we have all these things to consider. Each of us do things differently. You're looking at the barn door style sliding, that fixed panel. Some guys hold it in place with channel. Some do clamps. Some just rest it on the threshold with a couple of setting blocks underneath it. And they use a heavy duty clamp on the wall. you know? So
We do it
again,
with none,
see?
actually.
Correct. And to Bill's point, I just reiterate and reemphasize, these are guidelines. These aren't codes. These aren't mandates.
No.
These are just some guidelines. That's really all they are. I mean, you'll find folks that'll, there's a million ways to skin a cat. They each one has their own preference, their own comfort zones, or tricks they've learned across their careers. There's also a ton of stuff that gets way over engineered and way overdone and overkill. And so it's, again, yeah, you're absolutely right. These are guidelines. Just the common areas where a big enough group of shower manufacturers, installers, and fabricators at least found common ground on the stuff they could agree on. But there's still other areas of things that are absolutely doable, 100%.
Yeah, here's the thing about putting stuff in writing is someday something's going to happen and a lawyer's going to say, well, what are the guidelines? Do you use these guidelines? Obviously, the National Glass Association thought it was so important that they drew up guidelines. Have you been trained on them? Are you following those best practices? Oh, you're not? Why not? So you have
That's
to
why we have these recorded, Bill. We got all these
Yeah.
meetings recorded. So we just go pull the meetings of the experts and tell them what's up. I do think, though, it helps, Andrew. It's going to really help the people that are coming out of auto glass or something else, like, oh, geez, there's some good money there. I'm just going to kind of dive in. I think for the people that are maybe curious, they need a launching spot. They're not bold enough, as Billy and I talked about today earlier, but not to get into these meetings to talk. They don't want to go talk to their competitors. They don't know this group exists, which who wouldn't come to this group, but that's all right. So yeah, I do. I agree with Bill. Like, it's got to be kind of careful on how it's written to protect the industry, if that's what you're saying, Bill. But I do like that you guys are moving forward with it, because for years we've just needed it. We've needed it as a, hey, things to look out for that we learned the hard way.
Yeah, no, I think it's fantastic. And everybody I've talked to thinks it's fantastic. Just because we see many doors and we get called to service doors and you say, who the heck put it in?
Yeah.
They'll never tell you. They probably did it themselves. They probably didn't even hire a professional, or they went out and got some local handyman says, hey, I can do that. So yeah, we should have professional guidelines on how to do it.
I've been in this industry long enough, and I go out and see shower doors and I go, oh my God, I wouldn't have got out the front door,
Right.
with what I see.
Yeah.
People that are
using
using
a sliding door with 1/4-inch glass, and I'm not showering in it. I'm sorry.
So
we've taken out one that was plate glass, wasn't tempered. Yes, there's a heck of it. Was heavy glass. Never got tempered.
Yeah.
I think the funnest conversations on the shower professionals page are the ones where everybody nitpick everybody's showers. Those are the funnest ones to me.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, none of those have JE initials on them, do they? Just asking for a friend. I wouldn't hope.
I just sit back with my popcorn every time I see one of those pop up. It's a good time.
Class nerd.
I got a question for Andrew.
Uh-oh.
Where you at? So do you know who Don Harder is?
I don't believe so.
He was quite involved. California had a glass association. He ran it.
Gotcha.
And he was well known in the glass industry. And he tried to start what you're doing. And it never, it didn't go anyplace. So it's nice to see that you guys are doing it.
I'll read it. We're slow, but we did.
This was back in the 70s. Put it this way, it's back in the 70s and 80s.
And Tim, was it California only, or was it across the country?
He was California Glass Association.
Okay.
And you go to the trade shows, the NGA, and he was quite well known in the NGA.
Yeah, there have been some rumblings about some folks out here that are trying to get the California chapter going again. We are the national association, but we have our regional chapters as well that we support.
Yeah, but he used to run the own.
Yeah.
He used to have a glass show, just like the NGA did.
Yep.
And we go to Las Vegas right after you had yours and have it too. So.
Andrew.
Yep.
If there's anything that we wanted to maybe contribute, maybe our opinion or something.
That you can take or leave.
Yeah, right. But would we just contact you on that?
Well, it depends on what capacity. If it's feedback on stuff that's already been published, like say this design guide that I'm going to try to get into your guys' hand at a discount price. Stuff like that will be difficult for me to amend because that's gone through X amount of approval processes and ballot measures. But where we can get involved and do more not damage, but be effective on the onset at the front of it is this installation guide. In which case, that's how I snagged Bill getting involved. Is you gotta be a member, and then you gotta volunteer your time and be on these task groups. It'd be a conversation much like this, where everyone's discussing what they know to be true, and then it comes to a consensus, and then 2 years from now we have an installation guide, or hopefully not that long of a process, but you don't have a seat at the table unless you're an NGA member. You don't really get to participate. But I mean, feedback is always welcome, but if you can't complain if you don't vote, and to vote you got to be a member, and that's just the way it is. That's why I came from CR Lawrence on the hardware side, and that's the main reason I became a member. Yes, I like the camaraderie, I like the events, I like supporting the philanthropic side, but I really wanted to be in the room where everyone's deciding these guidelines of what you say you can or can't do with hardware, because that could lock me out of a spec or out of a project. And so that was always an incentive for me. So same for anyone installing. If you know these things to be true and you've done this a million ways, and then suddenly there's a guideline that says Bill's been doing it wrong for 20 years, he's not going to like that. And so Bill's he's now a member, and he's going to be sitting in on this task group to make sure that his perspective is covered. And so that's I don't know if that answered your questions, but you're welcome to send any feedback to me anytime, and I will take or leave it.
Well, one thing, I think home builders had, some association that came up with guidelines for, expectations for homeowners. Okay. Well, so what's acceptable, what's not acceptable, et cetera, et cetera. Sometimes customers ask about the space between the door and a panel. And generally, for a long time, we were getting probably too close. And so we had a lot of go backs, especially when weather changed from real hot environments to real cold environments. Well, the house moves a little bit. If you got your installations real tight, then you're getting more go backs, but some people, they question, well, what's an appropriate spacing between door and panel? It'd be nice if there was something in black and white somewhere that you can show the customer and say, this is the recommended by, let's say, NGA, then there's a third party that's kind of,
backing you up, that 1-8.
It can help. I mean, not peace of mind, I would say, more so than liability, and that's part of these whole guidelines. And especially if you can attach your name to one saying that, do I know what I'm talking about? Yes, I helped establish the guidelines for the National Glass Association. That's your mic drop moment. And that just kind of saying, it's not me telling you this, what I think I want to do. This is me working per these established guidelines. And so in between, there's kind of that sweet spot between what you're talking about, where there is an established set of guidelines, and not rules, but guidelines, and what Bill's saying, to where that might not be the be all and end all of everything that can or can't or should or shouldn't be.
Right.
Sure.
Well, one thing you guys mentioned at the very beginning of this whole thing, mentioning like doing I think it was like a right angle, a 90-degree situation without clamps. I've only done that a couple times. And then I started thinking, what if it comes down someday? What's my liability? So I use clamps, and sometimes I use, like the GCB 90s or something like that on big panels, just because I don't want the liability issues or some lawyer coming after me.
All right, so I'm going to speak to experience on this.
Yeah, no, and that's the moving target, is because your customer wants less metal. The less metal you put on there, the less hardware you got to buy. But at what point do you want to make sure that your phone's not gonna ring in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, and have to deal with that problem? That's kind of the moving target there.
Brad, let me answer it this way too. Even if you put the sleeve over on there and a customer falls and the glass breaks for whatever reason, you're still getting that call. They're going to have a tub slider and somebody got drunk and they came home at a hotel and slammed that door and the glass exploded. Guess what? You're getting that call.
Yep.
You're getting
That's
it.
true. And I actually, and I don't want to get into this, maybe some other day we'll have the conversation, but I had a situation where glass broke on it, you know, soon after we went out there. We don't know if it was an implosion or the customer messing with it. And the guy wanted to, you know, some kind of financial repercussion here.
Yeah.
And about a year later, I did meet with a lawyer who had a glass panel break from his tile guy installing a shower door. And he said, you know, the problem is that they have to be able to prove causality. In other words, they have to prove that they didn't do something inappropriate to damage the glass.
Yeah,
So
it's almost impossible.
Yeah, and that's very difficult. So anyway, I'm going to leave it at that.
Yeah, in theory, they have to prove everything. But in reality, insurance companies just want to settle.
Yeah, yeah,
This is
precisely.
the third lesson in a series that walks you through setting as well. Start blue and your device will be connected and ready for use.
What do we got this week, Chris?
Yeah, so Andrew, talk a little bit more about membership.
Let me unmute myself. So for membership, you really only get out of it what you put into it. Designed to be accessible by anyone. So it's all membership dues are based on annual sales. And so we want to make sure the little guys have the same access to our tools and resources as the monsters in the industry. And so annual sales starting anything under $1 million, your membership could be a couple $100 a year. If you're Corral Industries, if you're Sierra Lawrence, it's going to be up there more. But then that gives you access to participate in our task groups. And so one, you get discounts on all of our resources, whether it's My Glass class, where we have online glazer training for all things, anything from, we do have shower resources, we have basic safety, we have fabrication, we have storefront. And that's designed really to kind of complement and enhance your in the field training. You can't replace the hands-on stuff, actually doing it on a screen. But it's designed to kind of bring in new folks that don't have that base level familiarity with the industry, and really kind of expedite your training process for new people. And then also just running some of the old dogs through it just for some of those best practice things, reminders, so that you know, all right, I know all my guys and gals out there have taken this safety course. So if they come back, someone gets hurt and they give me any bullshit, I know that they've taken this course. And so that can solve some peace of mind and comfort level issues there. And so being a member, you get 50% off of all those courses there. You get 50% off of all of our guidelines, all of our technical documents. You get discounts on any of our technical conferences. But the real value is getting involved and volunteering. I mean, we all have extra time like this much. I mean, the fact that this many people in this industry are able to get together on a Wednesday evening is very impressive, and that shows dedication. So I mean, it really does weed out. You know that the folks that are involved are engaged. They're the ones that do care. They're trying to improve themselves and improve the industry. I'd be really curious to know. I know Bill's a brand new member. Billy Britt's been a member for a while. Maybe he could speak to what he gets out of it from his company. Because I can talk forever, but I don't think you want to hear me talk forever.
So I've been going to the trade show since 1970. So
yeah, Tim needs to talk more than me. Tim is the oldest glass guy on the West Coast. So I don't claim all my 60 years.
So
all his years are his. So the 60 years on my end, I can only claim about 20 of them. So Tim is the guy to talk to if he's been in the NGA that long.
Like we used to go to the trade shows in New Orleans. My dad would go because it used to be in different places. It wouldn't go Atlanta and Las Vegas back and forth. So it was all over the United States, and my dad would always go to it. But we'd always go to Las Vegas. That was the best part.
Oh my God.
Yeah, we got a little too big for our britches. It used to be, you know, it used to be the NGA glass show, like what you're talking about, and it was a lot smaller and a little more nimble. Now with the amount and size of toys we bring to it, there's only so many venues that can hold us, and then especially on the equipment and machinery folks, that we got to be near a port.
No, I like it. Las Vegas every 2 years.
I will say though, if you know, asking is, I can still consider myself a younger guy in the industry. I don't know how much longer I can do that, but what do I get out of the relationship? And it's a new, even though we've been you know, members for a really long time, it's a newer thing for me. It's the relationship. That's what I get out of it. Is the interaction, the ideas bouncing off of each other. The camaraderie is important to me. Feeling like you're kind of alone in what you do, and then you get in a situation like this with this many people, realizing that we literally all live in the same world every day of our lives is kind of cool to me. And yes, this is a Zoom call on Facebook that we owe Chris a lot for, but the NGA is kind of a similar thing. Andrew and I have started to build a relationship. I get to meet people through him. It's just feeling like you're a part of something more than the headache you deal with every day in your space. And creating an understanding that, yeah, there's guidelines and there's things that are going to be put out, but we're all fighting kind of for the same thing. You know, all of us kind of have a reason why we're doing what we're doing, and they're typically pretty similar. And I think the NGA, from probably the last few months to year experience I've had with that, those guys are doing the same thing. They're just trying to better the industry for all of us as best they can, dealing with the bottom of the industry all the way to the top, which I'm sure can be quite the experience on a daily basis. So that's what I get out of it. And I continue to hopefully get more as I season myself in the glass industry. But having, you know, younger guys in it and younger gals in it that are excited about what they're doing is enjoyable. I've not only talked to Andrew, I've talked to other people in the NGA recently that, you know, a couple years ago, I wouldn't even have thought about. But it's experiences like this, both here and through there, that I think are the biggest benefit for me.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I think we all know this is very much a relationship-driven industry, and just the couple times that I've joined these calls, I can see that. Obviously Tim and most of the folks on this call can speak to it better than I can. When I came into this industry, maybe 15 years ago, it was a lot different culture and different ecosystem. It was very competitive. I mean, it's still competitive. Everyone's got to eat, but the idea sharing and the community component is something I've kind of seen develop and cultivate more so in the last 10 years, even the 5 years, which I think is great. You know, whether it's sharing ideas, someone needs a hinge, someone's looking, part of what I do is I just today I helped connect a glazing contractor in Philadelphia who's doing some storefront work in Florida. And so I go through my Rolodex and say, yeah, I know this folks, and then so that type of engagement and that connectivity is all part of it, part and parcel. Absolutely. So I think it's nice to bring these like-minded folks together for these idea sharing, and just like Billy said, just that general self-improvement and industry improvement really raised the bar.
I had to wear my NGA hat whenever I do endorsements. It's part of the deal. I'm a re-member, Big Clips, and apparently if you put a lot of money into a product and you don't make any, they'll pay you. So no, I'm kidding. We pay like $1 probably, but it is, don't worry about the fees because it's absolutely worth it. I was more involved in the Building Industry Association over my career. I went to my first NGA conference in 1997, 14 years old, and running around Vegas while my dad went to meetings. And I will say the best thing I've ever heard is that a rising tide lifts all boats. A guy told me it when I was like, should I really be involved? Should I go to these committees? It's really not paying back. And those of you who know me, Andrew had to take a dig, peddling software. I like to get involved because it helps all of us. And then as we lift the industry, it's paying it forward, and then you'll get what you need out of it. And so I just think it's really encouraging for every shop should be a member at whatever level that is. And so that's my little 2 cents for it. But just remember that if we want, I've got daughters, if we want to keep the industry alive and thriving, Billy, like we talked about today, you just have to be able to protect it. So
thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jim. And just for context or perspective, our membership is, over half, probably 60% of our company is made up of what I would say small to medium sized glass shops and glazers. We obviously do cater to and do participate and engage with the bigger outfits, whether manufacturing or installing, what have you. But our core is the little guy, and that's who we're always trying to protect.
Yeah. Hey, before we go too long, kudos to Chris. This is a new record. We got 18 participants tonight. So Chris, kudos to you for sticking with it. We've got some really good people here. But, I can't say enough about Chris Phillips and what he's done to bring everybody together. This is really a good forum. And that's what the NGA does as well, is bring people together.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I definitely want to be on board. I want to be with the cool people, man. So sign me up,
You are the cool people.
Yeah.
we just all need floral shirts. We just have themes. I mean, all you got to do is just message us and say, tonight is Hawaiian night. I would have just decked it out.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, well, and to Chris's credit, Chris does engage. He does get involved. He's volunteered his time. He's spoken at our events. And so we just gotta make it official and tag your ear now.
There you go.
That's right. Well, I'm going to be passing the basket, the collection basket, so you guys can all pitch in to pay for my membership to the NGA. No, actually, I mean, my sales are so low, it's probably only going to be like $50 or something for me to join.
Oh, I was kidding. They actually take your money even if you have low sales. But my point was, it's worth it, whether it's a little or a lot. You're helping the future. So don't get me wrong. I want to misendorse the fees.
So Andrew, the other good thing about this is because of this forum, just like the NGA, where you meet people at the glass shows, my wife and I are taking a trip to go see Billy Britt next week. So it's kind of neat. You're going to other parts of the country, and if you're a glass guy, you're going to try and look at other people's glass shops. You can't help it, right? No matter what city you go in. It used to be you go into the yellow pages. Now you go on Google and see who's around you. So
you gotta go see Bill.
Yeah, we're going up to see, and you come down to Florida, you got to come down and see me, and it's open to anybody in this forum. You're more than welcome to. Craig came down. He was staying down in Florida, smart man, and he stopped by. So when we go up to that part of the country, I am going to stop by your shop. If you're part of this forum, and if you're anywhere close to us, we want to stop by your shop also. I love what Glazier Nation's doing. It's the same type of thing.
Hey, give us a few minutes before you come, Bill.
Yeah,
we gotta clean up.
Quick, build a culture. Get our leadership together. Treat our customers.
Everyone smile, damn it. Smile.
Clean up that
Smile.
Andrew, and I don't know if you know Toons, who's on here, but he's in Nigeria, and he's on every week.
I've seen him here. I've interacted with Toons on LinkedIn. He's heavily involved with the Glazier Nation. That's some commitment right there. Kudos to you, sir.
Yeah, it's, what is it, 1, 2 in the morning there? That's amazing.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah, you're welcome. And a very respectful man also.
Yeah.
Very.
Okay, well, it's 6:30 in California. This is getting pretty late for me. I'm just saying, maybe.
What are you gonna do? Otherwise,
where you at?
Saved by the Bell episodes. You know, watch some episode of Saved by the Bell. You know, do your little brag about your cool Zach Morris phone. I mean, come on, you got plenty of things you can do.
Andrew, where are you at in California?
I'm in the Inland Empire, Corona, about 45 miles east of Los Angeles.
Okay.
Okay. Dana, I'm glad you're on, Dana. I haven't seen you since like week 1 when I was first on this thing.
Oh, it's good to see you guys. Yeah.
Yeah.
Really
So,
good.
I mean, does anybody else have a question for Andrew before we wrap up here?
Yeah, I dropped my direct email in the chat here. So if anyone ever has any more questions, I wasn't planning to come here and give any sort of pitch or anything, but if you have questions and don't want to talk about it with an audience, you just shoot me a line and we can talk more.
One thing that I'm curious about is what putting together this design guide. Was there something that was like kind of unexpected that came up, or something that kind of surprised you that that ended up being included or excluded?
No, I think circling back to some of Bill's comments, I think it's very vanilla. It is stuff that everyone can agree on, and so there's nothing really too extreme or off the wall out there that I don't think it'll surprise you. And as a new member, it looks like you signed up. I'll shoot you the PDF tonight, and you can have a look at it. And I'd love to hear what this group says. I mean, again, it might be too late to change course on some of the stuff, but we can at least document it and get it right on the installation guide side.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I think it's probably a good thing that some of us weren't included, in that first part.
If NGA members would have gotten a call to volunteer.
Right, there you go. There you go.
So Andrew, since you're from California, I don't know, about 10 years ago, one of the building inspectors up north, I think it was Petaluma, started looking at the showers and says, where's the engineering on these things? And he was going to shut down everything.
Yeah, there's been a couple hairy things that have happened. I mean, there was a big push, mostly by the interlayer folks, that wanted all showers to be laminated. Suddenly, people want engineering calcs. That too, and then the whole nickel sulfide conundrum were probably the big three biggest things I've seen on the shower side and on the west.
And a lot of people don't know what nickel sulfide is in tempered glass.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I'm not the glass engineer, but it's an impurity that can exist within the glass, and really the only way to detect it is through heat soaking, and which adds a whole nother process and a whole nother big batch of equipment for the fabricator. You will start seeing it in some more specs. A lot of architects don't even fully understand it, but they're specifying it now just because they don't want that liability.
Well, a lot of high rises are doing it now.
Yeah, well, and a lot of it's just some bad apples. I mean, from what I know or what I've heard is, about 15 years or so ago, there was a lot of imported glass from China, especially in the Canadian market. And in those high rises up there, there were a lot of issues with some exploding glass and just units dropping. And so that put a bad taste and gave a lot of bad rap for glass. But in reality, a lot of it was just cheaper imported glass that didn't necessarily have the same same ANSI standards.
There's a building down in Australia that had the same problem.
Yeah, and it doesn't help. I mean, the ambulance chasers, or the news coverage of a shower blows up in a hotel and suddenly it's national news. I was like, well, it's probably their dumb kid that slammed it, or there's a million things that it could have happened, but someone stuff happens, and everyone's excited to report the bad stories more so.
It's like 1 in a million blows up,
Yeah.
They don't talk about the 900,000 that were successful.
Yeah, it's always spontaneous because nobody ever did it, right?
Yeah. Just boom, out of nowhere.
So
I was just standing there, blew up.
I'm not familiar with this. It's nickel sulfide, did you say?
It's an impurity in glass.
Okay.
Yeah, we could do a whole hour on that.
And if it's annealed, it doesn't.
Fusions.
If it activates, it doesn't bother it, but it's tempered, it blows it up.
No.
Yeah, and if that's something you guys wanted to get into, I mean, I know enough to be dangerous, but if you wanted to set something up, I could probably snag one of my more technically inclined friends to come in and speak to some of these things, whether it's nickel sulfide or fabrication techniques. I mean, Bill could probably even speak to a lot on the fabrication side, just with his toys he has. But I'd be happy to help this group however I can. I'm just the pretty face.
Yeah, you are. Hey, so let's talk about that. Let's talk about having you come in and just kind of being the host. Every now and then we'll have, kind of a guest host come in, and I'll just kind of work the buttons here in the background and let somebody else kind of take the lead. Maybe you'd like to do that. We could talk about nickel sulfide inclusions and spontaneous combustions and all that kind of fun stuff.
Absolutely. I'd be happy to find someone that can speak to it in a way that could answer more questions. I can tell you everything I know, but it'll be it'll be probably the shortest call you've ever had on here. But yeah, anything like that, or if you guys want to submit some topic requests to Chris that may lean more technical, I can call in a favor to some people that could probably join us and field questions. I could still be a host and moderate, but having the phone a friend of someone that knows that can go a little bit deeper than I can would probably be more beneficial to you.
Yeah, it'd be good to get somebody right from the float plant like a Pilkington or a Guardian.
Yeah,
we could
do it.
Or just, I'm telling you, bulletproof shower doors.
Love it.
Never know. It's never know.
Bullet resistant.
Jim, I never get myself in that kind of a predicament.
Yeah, I feel like, well, sir, sure.
I know you're out there in Yellowstone.
I refer you to my shower door. Give them a call.
You do work at the Dutton
bulletproof
Ranch.
glass is bullet resistant.
Hey Jim, you do work at the Dutton Ranch at Yellowstone?
That exact ranch is 20 miles from my house, right here. All of Hollywood is here all the time. It drives us crazy. Speaking of my question for Andrew, why are you leaving me by my fire pit alone with my glass of scotch and my fly rod? I thought you were coming up this fall. Here it is, snowing, and you missed it. So, Andrew, that's my only question for you: is why would you stand up to your friend, your matching hat friend?
The ends of these calls always get so awkward like this.
They're so awesome. I love that. It's like The Office. We have to leave a level of awkward. For sure.
Yeah. The guy that needs a bullet-resistant shower, does it also have a gun port and a?
It's for my clients, and when you come to Montana, it makes more sense. Trust me.
They all have transaction windows.
I will say though, I do have a real ask though from some of you. I have a client, a friend, and he's in Orlando. Who is the best shower installer in Orlando? He's got an issue that I need to find the best for. He's got a large piece of glass that nobody can do it.
You're asking me a Florida shower question when you got Bill Topman on the line?
And I'm asking Bill. I'm not asking you. I've already asked you your question, why you stood me up in tears like the Notebook. I'm asking for Bill if he knows anyone in Orlando.
Yeah,
and maybe you do, Bill.
We've got a place in Orlando, and there's another guy in this group. I don't know if he's on tonight. Elibon.
Perfect. Okay. I didn't know you guys had a spot up there. Perfect. Okay. I'll reach out tomorrow. Perfect.
Yeah. Just send me an email.
Awesome. I wish I knew how to quit you, Jim.
You can't. I'm NGA for life now. So, well, unless we go under and I start working.
As long as your dues keep coming in, you're good.
$1. Here it comes.
There you go.
All right, guys.
Well, hey, my stomach's growling, so that means must be 6:30 here in California.
Can I ask one quick question? I think
Absolutely.
they can answer it pretty quick.
Yeah.
All right. I've got, and I've done this before. It's been many years where I've done radius. This is like radius for showers. And this actually, in this particular circumstance, can be a couple doors for a wine room, and they're going to have a radius top. So I told the contractor we have to install it towards the outside. And problem is they want to be able to condition the air inside. So I got to get it as tight to the top. So I can't leave a big gap on the radius. I'm just kind of wondering, based on everyone's experience, how tight can I get that on the top without it interfering as the door opens outward?
That's a tough one.
Yeah, that's not really a quick, question to answer. Yeah.
What we've done in that is actually make a template out of wood in whatever thickness glass you're doing. Because if you were saying 3/8, that's going to be different than 1/2 inch. Just make a template, put it up there, and then you're going to have to shave.
That's a good idea. Gosh. That is a really good idea.
It's the only way you can really do it and be accurate.
Yeah.
What's the safe distance, like an inch?
I can't tell you because I don't know what the depth is. If
Yeah.
you set those hinges in deeper, that changes your swing radius.
Uh-huh.
You hit,
It's all
so it
how far
depends
you
where
can
your
set it out.
hinges are mounted.
How far you can set it out. I mean, if you use an offset hinge and get it out to the far outer edge,
Yeah.
you shouldn't have too much trouble. As soon as you
And it
start
swings out only.
That's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to the outer edge.
swing out, have a stop behind it so it can rest against something to give you a good seal, and just set it on the outer edge with an offset hinge is what I would do.
That's exactly what you were talking about before.
Yeah.
That's what we'll do.
That's the perfect answer, though. Yeah.
Yeah, we've done several where we've used plywood. Like we have a lot of Montana like castles, and they want to carve, and so wood really, unfortunately, it's the only way to really get a pattern. It's another way to guarantee that the fab comes out right, because you have an honest comparison, versus a piece of paper. So, this thick, thin plywood as close as you can is the only way we've ever been able to do some of those tricky patterns.
And also, depending on their motif, they may have tile, but they may be able to accentuate it with wood, and then they can shape the wood to a more defined pattern for you to close that gap. So they could put a piece of wood or a piece of stone on the inside so that your door is closing up against that, and that's your seal.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you can keep your glass on a 1/4 inch or a 1/2 inch, and they can do an additional piece of either stone, curb, or a piece of wood. And
Yeah,
that
because you're
becomes
going to
your
want to
seal.
stop it from swinging in anyway.
Right, exactly.
Mhm.
Good
All right.
ideas.
I appreciate that.
You guys are awesome, all of you.
Good questions, guys.
My grandson's waiting for me to cook dinner for him, so I got to go home.
All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye,
See you
guys.
next Wednesday.
All
bet.
right.
Thank
Thank
you. Appreciate it. Good to see you, Andrew. Thanks for coming.
Thanks, Andrew.
Good night.
Thanks,
Good night,
everybody.
everyone.
Okay.
Bye.